Clare FM's In the Garden with Clonroad Garden Centre, Clonroad Business Park in the heart of Ennis. Whether you're a seasoned gardener or just starting out, our friendly staff are here to help your garden grow. Open 7 days a week, Monday to Sunday.
I'm joined as ever by Judy Beck from Clonroad Garden Centre. Judy, good morning to you.
Good morning, Alan. How are you today?
Very well. So we have talked about things like carrots in recent weeks and cabbage. And here's a vegetable now that it took me some time to acquire a taste for. It happened later in life and love them now. And this is onions.
Yeah, so we'll continue with the vegetable theme because that's what a lot of gardeners are coming in to buy at the moment. I call them the real gardeners, the people who grow vegetables.
In that sense, what, they're making full use of their garden?
Absolutely, and nothing better than grow it yourself. So onions would be probably one of the easiest things to grow. So not only for experienced gardeners, it's probably, if you want to start growing a few vegetables, onions is a really good one to start with because you're pretty much guaranteed success.
Okay, well, I mean, for that reason alone, you can't go wrong. So what else do people need to know about onions? I suppose in terms of growing them, is there a hard and fast rule on that?
Well, there's two different ways to grow onions. One is from seed and one is from sets. And sets are basically little onions that have been grown from seed last year and the growth has been stopped when they form a small, tiny little onion. And people buy them then and replant them now. And then they grow into a nice big onion. And it's probably the easiest way to grow them. But a lot of experienced gardeners do grow them from seed. And it's probably more economical to grow them from seed. But sets is easier. So if you're beginning gardening, I would recommend to grow from sets.
Okay, so grow from sets. When is the best time to be growing onions?
So you can plant onions in the autumn, but it's more popular to plant them now in the spring. In the autumn, you do have the risk, of very wet ground and, the onions could rot. So most people plant them now in the spring and they're widely available to buy the sets and the seed. But if you are going to grow them from seed, you'd want to get a move on because we're into March now, almost towards the middle of March. Sets, you still have plenty of time. That's the good news. So you can sow sets right up until the end of April. And you can get, of course, red onion sets, white onion sets. You can get shallots. Now, the one type of onion you don't grow from sets would be the spring onion, or scallions, as we call them. And those ones you do have to grow from seed. So if you are thinking, shallots are really nice actually, and a lot of people who cook like to grow shallots, but they're still not as popular as the ordinary white onion. We would sell an awful lot of those. Then when you are growing onions, there's a few things you have to watch out for. One is because they grow so tall and narrow, the onion bed can get an awful lot of weeds around them. So in order to avoid that, well, you can break your back by doing all the weeding, but there is an easier way to avoid it.
People will be happy to hear this. Go on, tell them the easier way.
So what you can do is put down a sheet of weed block. That's like the black plastic that people put under bark mulch or under stones to stop weeds coming up. And if you lay that down and then put little holes into it and put your onions through the holes, and that stops all the weeds growing up around your onions. And of course you can use that every year. You don't need to throw it out at the end of the season. You can save that for next year. It saves an awful lot of time and it just makes life so much easier for you.
Okay, well, I think that's the option a lot of people are going to go for. I do wonder as well, Judy, so they've got to watch out for weeds. That's one way to tackle them the best way when growing onions. We spoke about with cabbage, and look, with every type of vegetable, and indeed, I guess, flower and plant, there's going to be some sort of pest that they need to be wary of. Is it similar with onions? Is there any flies or any insects out there that like to munch on onions?
Very few. One of the biggest things is the birds, actually. They just, because the way you plant onions, you plant them half peeping out of the ground. So you don't bury the set into the ground. You leave it half peeping out, and then the birds see them. They obviously must think it's a type of food. They come along and they pull the onion out of the ground. They don't like the taste of that, and they drop it. So that can do it can be a bit annoying after you've gone to all your hard work. So if you have that problem, you can put netting over them to avoid that. Now, they do get a couple of diseases. One is powdery mildew. And to avoid that can be from very wet ground. So to avoid that, you could try growing them in a raised bed. And the other thing you can get is white rot, which rots the onion and it makes it inedible. So to avoid that, you could do a 4-year rotation. There's no chemical available for white rot, so you really need to prevent it, because if you get it, you can't actually grow onions for 7 years again.
7 years?
It stays in the ground. So it's very important. We were talking about rotation last week. So don't put onions in the same place every year. This year you could do onions there. Next year maybe you could do carrots there. And
change it up.
Exactly.
Okay, and while we're talking about that, the soil, what type of soil do onions like?
So they do like a fairly fertile soil. So add compost to the ground before planting to get a nice big size onion. They do like a fairly fertile soil. And one tip actually really good, what onions are really good for, is for if you grow them beside carrots, the smell of the onion confuses the carrot fly. So if you do get the carrot fly coming along and laying its eggs on your carrots, onions is really good, because the carrot fly actually finds the carrot by smell and the onion confuses them. So really good to sow onions alongside carrots, and that would be, it's not an old wives' tale, that does work.
Okay, very, very good. You heard it here first. In terms of grow bags, containers, what type of vessel aside from the ground is good to grow them in? Yeah,
so you don't have to sow onions in the ground. You can grow them in, they do have fairly shallow roots, so you can grow them in grow bags and in containers, and especially spring onions, they're very good in grow bags and containers. But even regular onions or shallots, you can grow them as well. You can buy grow bags in the garden centre, and often used for tomato plants, for example. They're called tomato grow bags, but you can use them for loads of vegetables, and onions is one that grows really well in those grow bags.
Okay, so good to use those. Anything else that people should be aware of about onions, other than they tend to make you cry, before we move on to jobs of the week?
Well, I would say, it is a really good one to start with. I know they're not that expensive to buy in the shop, but they do taste much nicer when you grow them yourself. And I've seen, for any beginner gardeners out there that are thinking of growing some vegetables and they're a bit, I'm not sure, it sounds a bit complicated, I would say start with onions, see how you get on, and that'll give you confidence maybe to go on and try other vegetables next year.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Thank you for that, Judy. 086 1800 964 if you have any gardening questions to put to Judy. Before we get to that though, some jobs for the week ahead. Yeah,
and hopefully we'll have a week of nice weather, so we'll be able to get out and do a few jobs. Dahlias and begonias, if you lifted them out of the ground last year and put them away in the shed for the winter, now would be the time to start planting them up. If you don't have any bulbs, you can buy them now and start them off yourself in pots of compost. So that's your dahlias and begonias. If you're looking for a bit of colour, because they're not going to give you media colour, if you want a bit of a media colour in your pots, lovely primroses and pansies and bellis, lots of colour coming in now into the garden centre. So if you want to do up a few pots to go with any bit of good weather, it's lovely to look out now, and lovely in the garden centre with all the new colour coming in. So now would be the time to put those out. And for the vegetable gardeners, well, lots to do for vegetable gardeners, but now's the time to start sowing cucumbers, courgettes, tomato plants, chilli plants, lots of different vegetable plants if you want to buy your seed and start those off.
Okay, brilliant stuff. Let's get on to the listeners' questions then. 086 1800 964 again, if you want to send one in. First question from a listener asking, is there a type of sweet pea that comes back every year?
There is actually. Now, most people know the sweet pea that's annual, that you sow every year and it dies back and then you have to sow it again the following year. There is a type that is called everlasting sweet pea. It comes back every year. You can buy that in plants or you can grow it from the seed. But the one thing about the one that comes back every year, it doesn't smell as nice as the annual one. And most people grow sweet pea for the smell. So... but I mean, they look really nice too, and it's great that they come back every year, but they just don't smell as good as the annual one.
Okay, a listener wondering what they should feed their camellias with.
Yes, so camellias is the flower that is flowering right now. It looks almost like a rose. You see them in pink and red and white. Now, they're not as popular in our county because most of us are in limestone and they don't grow well in limestone. But in certain areas of the county, you'll see them, or people grow them in pots. And they really are gorgeous when they're flowering. And for feeding them, you should be using a sulphate of iron or sequestered iron. There's particular, or often it'll just be called camellia food, liquid camellia food. So there is a particular type. You don't use tomato food or those regular feeds on camellias. There is a particular type of feed for camellia that are easy enough to get.
Okay, Morning Focus listener Joan wondering, is it too early, Judy, to put lawn feed down?
Well, I'd wait maybe, Joan, till this frost is gone. It's a little bit cold at the moment, so certainly they are available to buy now, and there's lots of different types of lawn feed, depending whether you've weeds, whether you've moss, whether you just want to feed the lawn, and all of those are available now, and a good time to buy it and have it ready for when the temperatures pick up a little bit.
This next one I'm intrigued about, because I'm wondering myself what it is. Somebody wondering, what is a carpet rose?
So a carpet rose is, well, it looks pretty much like a regular rose, but the name there, the carpet, is gives it away. It's a low growing rose that spreads wide instead of growing really tall. Really nice rose, very easy to mind. You don't need to be worried about fussy pruning. You just get your head shears and cut it away, and it springs back up next year. Flowers all summer, loads of flowers. They're usually single flowers, which are good for the bees actually, and really pretty. I love carpet roses, and they come in lots of different colours.
I love the emphasis you put on that. Cut the rose.
Yeah, I know, 'cause some people are scared of pruning roses, so with carpet roses it makes life so easy.
Okay, is it too late, Judy, to prune a beech hedge, wonders another listener?
Well, that's a great question, and it is and it isn't. Beech hedges should be pruned in August. Actually, at the end of August is ideal. But if you didn't do it then, you can do it now. Don't overly prune it too heavily now, and prune it again in August. But if it's really out of control and really, if you really want to give it a bit of a haircut, yes, you can prune it now.
Okay, Mary asking, can I grow an apple tree if I live near the sea? That's something I never thought about. Does being close to the sea, can that affect growing fruit trees?
It can affect growing lots of things because of the salty air. It's really tough on plants. Most plants really struggle near the sea, but it all depends on how close she is to the sea, and because some people say they live near the sea, but they might live 3 miles away.
That's a fair point.
Consider that.
What kind of, are we talking, like if you're a mile in, you're pretty safe anywhere from there? Or
well, you see, then it depends on what kind of garden you have.
Okay.
Because if you've a sheltered garden, or if you're up in a hill. If you're up in a hill, you're going to get that cold winds coming in with the salt, so that can be really tough. If you live near the estuary, it can be really cold there, and you're getting, where the estuary there meets the sea, and it can be cold and salty and difficult. But if you have a sheltered garden and you have good hedging, for example, around your garden that's breaking the wind, definitely. That sounds a bit rude. And definitely, you can. I would give it a go. I would definitely give it a go. Do you know what? You could even try the miniature trees, the dwarf trees, because they don't catch the wind as much. So that might be an option for you.
Tell you what, it'd be difficult for anything to grow if there was breaking wind happening around the place. Anyway, moving swiftly on. Someone else asking about orchids. They say they got a gift of an orchid, and they're just wondering, in terms of care, how often they should water it. Yeah,
so this... if you haven't minded an orchid before, they're actually surprisingly easy, and they kind of thrive on neglect, because the orchids are planted into like a really barky compost that releases the water really quickly, because they hate to have roots sitting in water, because the root literally drowns. So in the wild, the orchids grow actually on a tree bark, and the roots are totally exposed to the air, and they actually they can photosynthesize the roots, which is really unusual for that type of plant. But if you notice your orchid roots going shrivelling up, then you know you need to water it. And also, if you notice them too fleshy, then you're overwatering. So orchids actually like to be brought into the shower, given like a nice watering down, wash off the dust off the big leaves. Consider it like a spa day for your orchid, and they love that kind of damp atmosphere in the bathroom. But don't do it too often. In the wild, they'd get absolutely drenched very rarely, and that's what you should be thinking about, trying to replicate those conditions.
Okay, and the final question from one of our listeners, again, it's to do with roses. They're just wondering when they should feed them.
Well, you know what, Clare people love their roses, and they're actually really good with roses. We sell an awful lot of roses, and there seems to be kind of a tradition of growing roses in Clare and feeding roses. So you do that now in March. And you can do that by feeding them like with a farmyard manure, or you can actually buy, if you're not crazy about dealing with farmyard manure because there is a smell of it, you can actually get a granular feed for roses. So you feed your roses now at the beginning of the season, and after the first flush of roses you feed them again, and that encourages more roses to come back on them later in the year.
Okay, brilliant advice. Judy, thank you very much for being with us as ever, and we'll chat to you again next Monday. That's Judy Beck there from Clonroad Garden Centre with us for In the Garden. And if you ever, at any stage of the week, not just on Mondays, I'm always keen to stress, have a gardening conundrum that you would like Judy to help you solve, send them in to 086 1800 964.